Hello and welcome to Famous Gays and Lesbians, Alleged and Otherwise. I'm your host, Thomas Connolly. I happen to be a gay actor, and I live in the gayest city of them all, West Hollywood, California. Now, today's episode is part 2 of Anti-LGBTQ Bigots. And if you didn't see the first part, you got to go back and watch it. Hey, but I guess it's not that complicated. If you didn't see Rocky 1, chances are you might understand Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, and Rocky 5. Oh, but I digress. Today's list of anti-LGBTQ bigots represents people who are currently running for office. So you got to find out who these people are. Now, I have to give a big shout out to Malcolm Kenyatta, organizer and founder of AgendaPact.org. This organization is all about shedding light and awareness on the anti-LGBTQ bigots who are currently running for office. And what do you know? They happen to be ultra MAGA Republicans. And number one on our Hall of Shame list is Confederate uniform wearing Mr. Doug Mastriano, current gubernatorial candidate of Pennsylvania. He's running against the very experienced, capable, pro-LGBT candidate, not to mention handsome, Mr. Josh Shapiro. Mr. Mastriano, on the other hand, is a real piece of work. He is vigorously trying to decimate LGBTQ plus rights. He is not only against gay marriage, he goes way further in his disdain for the LGBTQ plus community. He believes homosexuality is quote unquote an aberrant sexual behavior, and he vehemently opposes LGBTQ couples from adopting. He has said publicly that protecting gender identity from discrimination is quote unquote madness. At his core, Mr. Mastriano believes that homosexual Americans do not deserve the same protections, freedoms, and rights as heterosexual Americans. That's right. Mr. Doug Mastriano is number one on our anti-LGBTQ list. Oh, and as a footnote, Mr. Mastriano participated in the January 6th coup against our government. He is also a hardcore election denier. Don't let that truth get in your way, Mr. Mastriano. Oh, and next on our list is Representative Steve Chabot from Ohio. Steve Chabot is currently up for re-election too. Mr. Steve Chabot is a longtime opponent of LGBTQ equality, as witnessed by his decades-long congressional voting record. He actively campaigned against marriage equality. Oh, and he even supported a license to openly discriminate against LGBTQ plus people. And recently, Steve Chabot voted to strip transgender military members from all healthcare services. And along with the notorious Lindsey Graham, aka Lady G, Mr. Steve Chabot has received a 0 from the Human Rights Campaign scorecard. The Human Rights Campaign, known as the HRC, rates every member of Congress for their support, or lack thereof, of LGBTQ plus equality. And next up is Mr. Ken Calvert, who has a history of 30 years of opposing LGBTQ plus rights in his congressional voting record. Mr. Calvert recently switched districts to the rather liberal bastion of Riverside and Palm Springs, California. And what do you know? Mr. Calvert has softened some of his positions on LGBTQ plus rights. But as Agenda Pact points out, do not forget his true colors and his 30 plus years of opposing LGBTQ plus equality. And last on our list of anti-LGBTQ bigots who are currently running for office is Representative Yvette Herrell of New Mexico. When Congress passed the landmark civil rights protections for the LGBT community in the Equality Act of 2021, Ms. Herrell actively campaigned against it. Ms. Herrell actually stood on the floor of Congress and said that banning discrimination for the LGBT community would actually harm other Americans without a shred of evidence. Proponents of the Equality Act quickly pointed out that 54%, over half of the trans community, had experienced some form of domestic violence, and they need your help. The Equality Act narrowly passed in spite of Miss Harrell's opposition. Well, that's about it for this episode. Hey, if you like this show, could you please like and subscribe? That would really help to sustain us here. This is Thomas Connolly for Famous Gays and Lesbians, Alleged and Otherwise. See you next time. Bye-bye.